Roll call.
Jonathan,
Yes.
I'm on the phone.
Yep.
Okay, Mrs. Edwards,
Here.
Mr. Ruiz,
Here.
Mrs. Labuda, Mr. Sorensen, Mrs. Geiger.
Here.
Okay, you don't have a quorum, so you can't vote on the
Kathy
resolution.
will be here in 10 minutes.
Okay.
Okay.
She was held up.
We'll start with the reports, I guess, first.
She was held up, bring up charges.
Okay, good morning, everybody.
Arrest somebody.
As we all know, snow is a big part of our lives these days, and this past week, we had the real snowstorm, as I'll call it, 10 to 14 inches. The week before, we had a false start where the storm actually missed our area, which was good news. I just want to report to the legislature that we have now got our communications down really good between the highway folks, the state DOT, Commissioner McAndrew, myself, the county manager, and speaking with state police, of course, the sheriff's office and 911. We are pooling our information very early in the morning to see how the roads are. We're looking with national weather as to which way the storms go. And of course, on February the 2nd, we had a false start, even with a state of emergency that the governor declared for 13 counties, except Sullivan County, which we will be pursuing from my organization next week at the state OEM meeting about why information from the governor's office is flowing to the press and social networks and not coming down through the OEM organization, because it is not.
Let me interrupt you for just a second.
Yes, sir.
I have a question, even though I'm not on this committee. How can we allow the governor to declare an emergency when he doesn't really know what's going on down here? I think that should be our call.
His staff is supposedly reporting to him in real time as to what conditions that the Weather Service is reporting, as well as other agencies, Thruway, DOT, and so forth, state police, and he's going on that information to do what he's got to do. I will defend him in that respect, but I also think that there's a lot of decisions making that's being made. They're not talking to those of us that are working in the counties that are affected. 57 counties in New York State. This last storm was basically the Hudson Valley, Long Island, New York City. That's pretty easy.
Yeah,
It's a-
well, the whole point is, if it's a statewide emergency, I can understand him declaring it. This is my county. I know what the conditions are in my county. We should have that.
Well, that's something I believe we should take to our state, what do you call the gentleman you speak with, Josh? He's a state.
Regional rep?
The regional rep. Get to the regional rep and carry it up from there.
Well,
That's
it
my
might be getting
recommendation.
a little night, had a little conversation in Albany.
Okay, well, I'm gonna have one next week in Syracuse. I'll get to that in a minute.
Okay.
So anyway, we've been working very hard with the storms. Obviously, what happened last Friday was unfortunate, the school bus in Livingston Manor. And actually, that particular storm was not supposed to happen like it did. About 7 o'clock, it started coming down real heavy, northern part of the county in particular, and of course, it caught everybody going to work, and the buses were on the road, but thank God it wasn't more serious. Second part, I've been attending meetings with State Fire Service Council. I was up in Utica yesterday all day, and one of the things that's coming down on the fire service, and we will be participating as a county, is health and safety. We have an enormous amount of firefighters in the state who are starting to suffer from heart attacks, cancer cases. We had physical injury, the death of a Montgomery firefighter who died yesterday, who was directing traffic in front of the Montgomery Firehouse on Ward Street and got hit by a car. I mean, to go into the particulars is not really the point today, but we can't afford to have this happen. This county's got 1,600 volunteer firefighters. We got probably another 350 EMS responders. And for the health part of this, we can't afford to have our members getting themselves heart conditions and dying of cancer. And that's from the contaminants that they wind up breathing or getting on their clothing when they're fighting a fire. Physical injury is another story. We can work harder to protect these people, making sure, especially those that are directing traffic, that they have the right physical warning equipment that they're wearing, the suits, that we have flares, we have vehicles with the proper lights to slow traffic down. But the real issue comes down that there was a fire in Newark Valley about 1.5 years ago. That's in the border of Tioga and Broome County, where there were some firefighters that were seriously injured. One died, and there was a lack of command there. This one firefighter hadn't had a physical in 10 years. And that comes back on the fire departments, and the State Department of Labor has had a series of meetings with fire service leaders, my organization included, state fire coordinators, and they're basically giving us an ultimatum that we either clean up our act to be organized, to have better health and safety procedures, or they're gonna come in and start writing regulations. And we do not want that, because we think we can police our own. So that's gonna be something, I have a meeting today, later today, with some of the fire service presidents from this county, trying to see if we can't put something together, as well as through the formal organization of the Bureau of Fire. We've had some meetings with the state police and the Park Service reference to our radio program. Alex is here, I'm gonna let him make a report of where we stand as of today, but we have had ongoing discussions with them, reference to the use of some of our towers, in particular along the Delaware River when we get them up. We did receive a 2014, they're always a year behind, a hazmat grant in the consortium of Ulster, Sullivan, Orange, and Rockland County. It comes out to $142,000. This is for the maintenance of equipment for all 4 counties. They don't give individual grants anymore. And Sullivan County is earmarked to get $25,000 towards the maintenance of the equipment that we have out at our garage at the training center. And I will be bringing a resolution next month here to this committee to start the process to accept the $25,000. And Rockland, by the way, does all the paperwork. They're the fiduciary, if that's the right word, to do all the, I can't spell it, but I did say it, so that everybody will know that Rockland takes care of everything for us, and we're very appreciative for them to do that. Going to be away next week at the New York State Emergency Managers Conference in Syracuse. Number of issues that are going to come up, subject to what Gene and I just spoke about, how state of emergencies are declared, how we are being notified of that information, and how we can give feedback. And then last but not least, everybody should know we've started a series of meetings on Mysteryland, so that we are up to speed. That again is Memorial Day weekend. 30,000 people. Looks like we got a good team of folks that are together, feeling very strong about it, and we'll keep you up to speed as we move on. Thank you.
Just a point of information, just so everybody's aware, the state has passed a law allowing counties to legalize sparklers and poppers and caps. Again, we were approached by some people up at Albany over the last few days, asking us to put in a resolution. I haven't worked one up yet. I don't know if we really want to do that or not. I'm just putting it out there so you're all aware of it from a public safety point
Okay,
of view.
what are they,
What they're looking for is we would need to pass a local law to piggyback on the resolution passed by the state legislature.
to allow it?
Sorensen
Right.
and-
There would be
And
a, I
the
forgot
only-
the exact
Yeah,
dates, there's a
yeah.
short window,
There-
like
there's very
30
short
days they
windows.
could buy them. They
Right.
could use them all year, but could
It's-
only purchase them like in and around July
It's the
4th.
month before July 4th
And
to
like a
about
day after
5
or
days
something.
after. And then again around Christmas time or New Year's for, you know,
So you're talking about low-level fireworks,
sparklers,
sparklers, and
caps, like you used to have in cap guns when those were legal.
Except that the state legislature approved the wooden sparklers.
Not the metal.
Not the metal one?
There are wooden sparklers, they're a wooden
Basically,
stick with
Kinda-
a spark. with
Remember
a-
punks that you used to use to
Yeah.
light off the illegal fireworks? Kinda like punks,
Yeah,
except they sparkle.
so the metal ones are illegal.
It's kinda like legalized napalm.
gonna say, I'm a little concerned.
They came in,
Awful hot.
that
Yeah,
came
well,
in
that's
at
what they're
our
saying,
meeting
yeah.
yesterday in
Yeah.
Syracuse, in Utica rather, Syracuse is next week. And I know for a fact that some of the state fire organizations will be approaching the legislature to not allow that to happen in Sullivan County.
And they advised us of that as well.
They're going
But I-
county by county to
Right.
talk to
I
everybody.
just wanted to let everybody in the room at this meeting know that that's what's going on. And
Okay.
we were
I think we
approached.
have a copy of a suggested resolution.
Yeah.
I may possibly, I'll check myself. Do you have it, Josh?
I
Yeah, I have
emailed
them somewhere.
Did you? Okay.
Alex?
Yeah, I first want to start by saying it's pretty encouraging and a good sign of the times as I sit here with a Post-it note, Mr. Walters over there with a tablet. So that's kind of neat, or an iPad, so. Oh, Mr. Walters. We've been busy, again, with the snow and the ice. We had an ice storm, 2-3 weeks ago, wreaked a lot of havoc for 911. You know, a lot of smaller accidents, but very many of them. I think at one point we had 30 or 40 accidents on the screen, so it's been a busy month for us. We did call in some extra people for a storm or two. and we got through them fine. We did complete the upgrade of our E911 phone system. We got all the bugs worked out, and we're moving forward, so we're happy to say that that project's complete. And again, that was a grant-funded project, roughly $500,000, and that included a 5-year maintenance plan as well. So, you know, and that was all grant-funded, so we're very happy to have that completed. We are working on a number of other technology upgrades, software, mapping, et cetera. So we're kind of in the process of that now. On the radio project, working on planning our last 2 sites, going through the environmental items and some of the layout and design planning, and then ultimately the final RFP for the last 2 tower constructions. Given the weather we've had the last few weeks, construction slowed down quite a bit. It's just hard to get up to the hilltops, and it's not worth risking safety for a public safety project. So we've asked the vendor to, you know, back it down, and, you know, and he's fine. They're fine with that. So probably once the weather begins to clear a bit, we get some sunnier days, we'll start to pick up some speed on the tower construction again. So we will be sitting down with Motorola probably in the next 30 to 60 days to kind of finalize our Motorola radio order, and then kind of starts a timeline of installation hopefully later this year.
Questions for Alex? Jim?
You get the sticky goods.
Next time you're getting you the 2x4 one.
Good morning, everyone. Just a brief report from the DA with respect to some initiatives that we've got going on. We have filled our 2 open secretary positions just recently, so we're back up to full steam with our support staff. We have our new assistant DA starting on the 16th of this month, so we'll be back up to full speed with that position as well. We had 3 very positive cases at the appellate division in Albany. Recently came down in the last month. We had a murder conviction in the homicide of Carl Williams. David Perkins affirmed. That 15 to life sentence was affirmed by the appellate court. Alan Charles was a rape conviction out of Fallsburg. His conviction for 32 years was affirmed. And Kevin DeVault, which was a child sex abuse conviction, his conviction was affirmed 25 years. So very, very proud of those affirmances. We have unfortunately, we have a lot of appeals, even when people plead guilty. In fact, DeVault was a plea, Perkins was a plea, so 2 out of the 3 that you see there were pleas. DeVault waived his right to appeal. Perkins did not, so we knew we were going to have to answer that one. But even when they waive the rights to appeal, they appeal, and we have to respond. We have to make our position known at the appellate court, and that takes time and effort and energy. Our heroin initiative is continuing in conjunction with all the local police departments, including the Sheriff's Office, New York State Police, their CNET, Community Narcotics Enforcement Team. We're targeting these drug dealers. We recently put a heroin drug dealer in the Village of Liberty, who was apprehended by the Liberty Police, away for 12 years. He had over an ounce of heroin. And there's some talk at the state legislature regarding the heroin initiative to change the laws vis-a-vis heroin, because you're selling very, very small amounts of heroin, and it really doesn't correlate well with other narcotics such as cocaine.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Jim. Could you describe for the other legislators what you described for me about how much an ounce of heroin actually equates to on the street with all those envelopes? Because it wasn't until you broke it down for me that I started to get a grasp of what you meant.
Yeah, I mean, heroin is sold in what we call little wax papers, and
Nickel bags.
In order to get a high off of heroin, you really need a very small amount of it. It's like 1/10 of a gram. This guy had 32 grams, so you can figure out how many how many little packages he could build based upon 32 grams of heroin. It's a lot of heroin. He had 900 glassine, those little glassine envelopes ready to fill. 900. With that 32 grams. I don't know if it go to exactly 900, but he'd be able to fill quite a few of those with those 32 grams. So he was a pretty substantial narcotics dealer. heroin dealer, and again, the sheriff has apprehended a number of heroin dealers as well that are in the pipeline. And we are taking a pretty hard stance on people who traffic these substances. The numbers, the death numbers are up. The sheriff and I both spoke at a community forum in Jeffersonville as part of WJFF's Kingfisher Project, which is named after Rebecca Fazal, who died, actually not in Sullivan County, but she was a Sullivan County resident, and she died in Pennsylvania. She was actually murdered, and she was addicted to heroin. This is a project, this was an essay that she wrote for school, a bird that she saved, and it was just, I think the sheriff can probably speak to it as well. The forum, I think, was very informative. There is a community effort here to make this a community solution. We need help from everybody. Some of the things that we're hearing, the things that we heard when we had the Senate hearing here, is that healthcare is, these people who have healthcare and have insurance, they're not covering, the long-term inpatient treatment that some of these folks need. So we need to engage on every level to try to combat this. From a stop the supply side, that's the police law enforcement end of it, to stop the demand side, that's the rehabilitation end of it. But we are working and certainly making sure that we address this problem. And as the sheriff is apt to say, it's heroin today, it may be something tomorrow, so we have to always be on the lookout for what's next. What's the drug?
Can I ask you a question,
du jour.
Jim?
Yes?
Yesterday, the day before, at the NISAC conference, actually Monday morning, there was a presentation by Ron Spike. He's the sheriff, I believe, in Monroe County, and he's the chair of the Standing Public Safety Committee at NISAC, and he did a PowerPoint presentation on what they're doing in their county with regard to the heroin epidemic. And one of the things that came out of that conversation was from a different county saying that they were seeing an increase in the age group, like the general age group for heroin users is 18 years old to 23 years old. But since that, the laws have been tightened on the oxycodone and opioid medicine, you can't shop around to different doctors anymore. They're seeing an older cohort, like a 45-year-old woman died a heroin overdose, and she had been on oxycodone for I don't know how many years. Is that a trend that's happening in Sullivan County or not?
No,
Are you seeing that?
I think that's true. Our average age of death at the unattended overdose age for the last 2 years, and I go from 2012 2013, was like 35 and a half. So yes, we are seeing older people as well. This is not some affliction that only afflicts young people. It runs the gamut, so that's true.
So that means that we now have to look at the unintended consequences of coming down harder on the prescription drugs opioid effect.
Well,
how that's affecting the heroin.
I disagree with that because,
Okay.
and here's the reason I disagree with that.
That's why I'm asking you.
Well, no, I'm going to tell you. Oxycodone and hydrocodone, oxycodone, it's synthetic heroin. That's basically what it is. It has the same effect on the central nervous system as heroin, street heroin. So, to say, well, we shouldn't crack down, I mean, I don't think that's what you're saying, but yeah, the crackdown is going to drive people to something. Yeah, the crackdown is going to drive people to something else that fixes that need. And as the sheriff is apt to say, if they can't get that, and if that's not cheap, they'll go to something else. So I don't think it's an unintended consequence. I think we have to, we have to address this problem at the root. Why are people taking these substances? We need to address it at the root. And that's not something that that me or the sheriff are gonna get to the bottom of. That's gonna take everybody to get to the bottom of.
Well, and one of the things, Jim, that I think everybody says is that it is treatable, it is reversible.
It's kind of fun.
It's not like once you're addicted, you can never come off if the right methodologies are there to overcome addiction.
Agreed.
Now, yeah.
Yeah, I really think we should sue the pharmaceutical companies who developed this class of drugs. it's had the unintended consequence of leading to this heroin epidemic. And, you know, we've sued tobacco companies in the past, for getting people addicted to tobacco. They clearly had to know that this class of drugs had an addictive quality. Who the hell at the FDA approved the class of drugs, I don't know, but I'm sure someone got paid off. But I think there really should be, maybe we can start with a resolution here, asking the state to intervene and start a class action lawsuit against pharmaceutical companies for developing this class of drugs to begin with. That would be my request, so. I
Are
don't
you
know if
aware
there's
of
any.
any actions like that have taken place?
No, because there's probably too many politicians at the state level who are getting
That are doing it.
contributions to, who are getting contributions from the pharmaceutical companies, so I think it would have to start at this level. I doubt any of us sitting in this room are dependent on a pharmaceutical company,
It is what it is.
for campaign contributions, so let's start here at the
I
local
was up
level.
in, I see how they act.
So the
So, is
our
there any
county-
support for a
so
resolution?
Well, it depends, our county attorney's office is gonna file the suit, Alan, I mean, how would you, who's
I
gonna
would
pay for
support
it?
that,
Hire
I mean,
outside
I would support
counsel?
that. If nothing else, it's sending the message that this is, you know, we know where these pharmaceutical companies are making, you know, billions, probably trillions of dollars off of this, and they deliberately have created the class of drugs that's highly addictive, and so now they got, like, you know, who knows, 20 million people in the United States hooked on this stuff, and, you know, they're just rolling in the money.
I think
And
the problem is, Alan, one of the things, they just developed another drug that's way.
Zohydro.
Z.
So let's get that one out.
Yeah,
Sam?
but, the idea is that these things are for patients that are just terminally ill, they're in excruciating pain. The problem comes in that doctors seem too prone to prescribe it. So I think what you'll find out at the end might be, the companies are actually making something that they're, for humanitarian purposes, there's a need for, but at the end where it goes out to the public, it's being given out too easily. Somebody gets a little injury at school and they're giving young kids
Well, if it's
oxycodone.
truly designed for people, you know, who are terminally ill, that would seem to be a very small class of people, and if, you know, they got the factories running day and night to
I'm
produce
talking about creation. But-
enough to serve 20 million people, then I think, I'm not
But I think you'll
disagreeing.
find a mixed issue there that, you know, these things were developed, this new one they're saying is, again, it's stronger because there are people laying there that, regular oxycodone and stuff isn't mitigating the pain. So they're making something even stronger. And a lot of politicians, a lot of people said, don't make it, don't even create it. But they did, and they got it through. But
I
then
think
the
it's
doctors prescribe.
I think it's only through litigation that we can address this issue, unfortunately. It's the only thing that dealt with tobacco.
Sam?
Sam?
I don't disagree with you, Alan. I just want to point out a couple of things when you refer to cigarettes. No useful purpose to cigarettes. I was a smoker for a lot of years. 3-pack a day, full malt smoker. I stopped 3 years ago. Didn't have any beneficial effects. Congress actually did hold some hearings about 3 years ago on the OxyContin problem. Oxy was.
I'm sorry, could you move the phone a little bit closer down to the speaker? Whoever.
It won't reach.
The phone's over there.
Okay.
I'll speak up a little bit. Congress had some hearings about 3 or 4 years ago. I remember actually listening to a lot of them. And there were a couple of pastors from a small town down in the south who said OxyContin became the new drug of choice, not Percocet or you know, all of those, for regular injuries, broken bones, things of that sort. And within a year, they had half of their local football team on OxyContin, thinking that it was just something that was going to be given in the nature of a very super aspirin for a while. That's how it was pitched. And now they've got a town of addicts. People who are breaking into homes to support habits and things of that sort, because what happened, and I have a dear friend who went through this, they found that by mashing it up and snorting it, we had a totally different situation. So, yes, go after it, but understand that there was a legitimate purpose for it at the outset. And that there are some doctors who are prescribing it. And you know, Alan, and I guess most of the people in this room know that I've recently been through a situation where I had to deal with it. For extreme pain. It's the abuse that's the problem. I don't know if that is the responsibility, if you will, of the manufacturer.
You know, you make a good point.
Pardon?
Alcohol is legal.
Yeah.
The abuse of it is not good.
Exactly.
Are we gonna sue an automobile maker for
Exactly.
allowing cars to go up to 120 miles an hour when speed kills? You're gonna put governors on all the cars? How involved should the government be in the personal lives of their citizens?
I won't, if you ask me to do it, I'll do it, Alan, and I'm not trying to argue against you, but
I still
do-
think it should be pursued, because I think the pharmaceutical companies are pushing it.
Well, the pharmaceutical
Yeah.
companies have made,
They're-
you know, we just finished, actually, we haven't finished, I just got another check for $65,000. As everybody here knows, we've been involved in a class action suit against pharmaceutical companies for overcharging us for drugs on Medicaid and Medicare for years. And they've inflated the price, and they've just created artificially high prices, and we joined with a group of other people through NISAC and retained a single law firm to represent all of us. And I would be glad to have that same conversation with other county attorneys in NISAC if you want to pursue it that way, so that we're not alone, because alone, we don't have the resources to take on pharmaceutical companies.
Yeah.
But what we
Yeah, I would
did
agree.
in the
I would like
overcharge,
that.
I'll be glad to do that, Alan, and what we did in the overcharge situation, Little Sullivan County came out with almost $300,000 in overcharges that were pursued, but that's a massive undertaking when you're going after pharmaceutical companies.
Oh, they're
They're
very well
well
financed.
heeled, yes.
They got
So,
a lot of addicted clients.
If I can if I can morph your suggestion a little bit,
Sure, I'm looking for guidance.
I will do it that way, Alan. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Cindy?
I just wanted to, kind of discuss the role that the local pharmacies play. Because if you go into a pharmacist, they have alerts in the system. So if there's drugs that interact with each other, an alert goes up to alert the pharmacy. Couldn't there be some kind of system where, because if you talk to any pharmacist here in Sullivan County, I think they're gonna tell you which physicians are over-prescribing these drugs, right?
They have to by
based
law
on-
right now.
Wait, let me
You-
just
you
finish.
can't physician
because-
shop.
Because, I had a conversation with a pharmacist not too long ago, and they were identifying physicians in the county that, traditionally. So, if you have, customers, clients, individuals coming in, and they're in drug treatment, right? Why not connect the two? You connect those in drug treatment with the pharmacists that identify these alerts and say, let's take a look at this. There must be some kind of a system through, the pharmacy, world that, could address this with somebody. There's gotta be some kind of checks and balances. I don't know if there currently is or not. But an alert there, if the pharmacist suspects, you track it with the person in drug treatment, and you say, look, this person was addicted, this was the physician, this physician seems to have a track record, and I think that's a way to identify what's happening.
Ally,
Does that
Yeah, I
make
can-
sense?
I just want to say, it appears Sullivan County has tightened up, because now I see my addicted inmates who are coming in is now using a single doctor out of Ellenville, New York. I have instructed my doctor to report that. I don't know what will come of it, but you can see by the people coming through my door, these are the people who are addicted. And we
So
take
there
down their
needs to be a
information.
mechanism that tracks the two and puts them together.
Correct, but The other thing I think we're missing here, just my 2 cents from, you know, who cares? These doctors know when they're prescribing these meds that they're addicted. And these doctors should know that patient A has been on this drug for 6 months, they're gonna be addicted. These doctors should be required to send these people to rehab. To straighten when
Pharmaceuticals
they
should pay for it.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
That's taxpayers.
But I think we're missing the key part is, it's the doctors, and listen, I've gotten a lot of arguments with doctors over the last couple of years on this subject. You know, I go have my tooth pulled and they're trying to give me oxycodone. What, are you kidding me? For what? You
Well, in
know,
a
how
state.
do
You can resell it.
Yeah. In a state system, if that was an alert on the end of the pharmacist, who gets alerts for drug interactions and other things, why couldn't there be a, a conversation with the pharmacist to see how they report things like this? You know what I'm saying?
Today's day and age of computers should be easy.
Do we connect the two, and then that physician that's possibly over prescribing, instead of him continuing to do the same thing, there's some kind of a sanction there saying, look, we noticed A, B, and C, and we wanna address that, and then he's on a watch.
The overprescribing, I think, it's all logged through that. There's a system now when they dispense narcotics, it gets reported to a central database, so they can track over-prescribing doctors.
So we need to reach into
So-
that information for Sullivan County. We can't change the world. I agree with Alan to address that, probably like Sam says, through NISAC and get a resolution through, the counties, but that's a big picture. But to change our focus in Sullivan County on, tracking these physicians and pharmacists with their knowledge of what they know.
My bottom line is that the pharmaceutical companies, again, know these drugs have addictive qualities, and they have precipitated the problem. So just as, the asbestos companies had to set up funds to pay for the treatment of people that have developed mesothelioma, so too should the pharmaceutical companies be required to set up a trust fund so that the taxpayers aren't stuck with picking up the tabs for the pharmaceutical companies' profits. That's what we're being asked
The
to do.
taxpayers will end up paying in the long run anyway, because if they have to set up this fund, they're gonna raise the price of their other drugs that we all buy, and we end up paying for it anyway. It's a vicious cycle. How involved are we supposed to get in the personal lives of our citizens?
Well, why can't we as legislators call a meeting with the pharmacists and just have a conversation? Find out, how does it work? Is it possible to track?
One of the things you have to do when you do that, and this is based on very recent experience, as you all know. You have to look at it by medical specialty as well. You wouldn't expect dentists, to use Hal's example, to be prescribing very large doses of narcotics. On the other hand, oncologists who are dealing with people in terminal stages or cancers that happen to be very painful will be prescribing very high levels because their philosophy, and I resisted it because I said, farmers don't take painkillers. That you can't fight you can't fight the disease if you're in such pain that you can't do certain things that you need to do. So part of it is you've got to look at medical specialties when you're looking at how much certain doctors are prescribing, because some of them are dealing with people who are in constant pain and severe pain. Some of them are not, and are just using their license and their script to be able to write. Anecdotally, many years ago, I went in to see a physician about something, and before I even talked to him, this is down in Westchester, he had his prescription pad out and was writing. And a lot of them do that. And you're right, Cindy. And the pharmacist would be a great way.
Can we set up a meeting with area
Pardon?
pharmacists just to have a
Or if you
conversation?
don't object, perhaps maybe being that none of us are pharmacists or doctors, maybe next month we could invite someone from the hospital and perhaps one of the local pharmacy. Just maybe we're onto something and maybe we're way off base, but not being involved, maybe we should have somebody come.
I think this is because we did have Dr. Galarno and his associate, I can't remember now, did a special presentation, and we had asked them at the time that we would do another follow-up.
Okay.
So if we ask them on this specific topic, because I don't think we have enough time now, and we still have 2 more reports to go on, so it's not going to get solved in this meeting. And Anne Marie, if you want to contact Dr. Galarno and say we want to follow up from his previous presentation.
I'd like to invite some area pharmacists, if somebody could
Yeah,
reach
nothing
out
better
to
to
them,
do, huh?
from Monticello,
Okay, so-
Liberty.
That's a good idea, and we'll work on it. Thanks, Jonathan.
Yeah,
For
Scott,
next
Scott
time.
Mace would be somebody you might wanna talk to,
Yeah.
because he's a part of our rural prescription drug task force.
That's very good.
And just one other thing, just
Yes.
lastly, there's a juvenile justice bill that the governor has proposed.
Ooh.
I think that you all need to really study that. That's all I'm gonna say. I haven't studied it, but I think you do.
Okay, so we can prepare all that for that presentation.
Okay.
Law, you said juvenile?
Juvenile justice bill.
Is that the change
Jeff
in
is on
the age
vacation,
from-
Yes.
so
Okay.
Sheriff,
Good-
you're on.
Good topic, nice.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's gonna be plenty.
Yeah, exactly.
I would just bounce off of what Jim said.
Before you start, the sheriff from Wayne County said to say hello.
Oh.
Barry.
We did go to that meeting in Jeffersonville on the drug problem, and as Jim said, it can't be handled at any one level. And I think it's important that the legislative body here know, everybody is pulling together, county health, the schools, the rehabilitation facilities we do have in the county, and it's something we're gonna have to hit as a community to get anywhere. I think one of the biggest problems is the treatment. They want you to go for the short term, they don't wanna pay for the long term, and it's the long term that's effective. And short term should be follow-up if you fall off the wagon, as you might say. But I was encouraged to see how many people showed up. I was encouraged to see how much participation from other organizations. And that's gonna be the answer to the problem. The other thing with, as Jim alluded to, the heroin bust we've had, also, everybody's working very closely together. We just had a decent heroin bust. Monticello worked with us, the task force worked with us, and it's everybody pulling together that's gonna get this done. And everybody is working in concert. And we're trying to get good cases to send over to the DA that he prosecutes vigorously, which is also important. Anything in the jail, huh?
Jail's pretty quiet, accounts running pretty stable. We do have 2 folks boarded out, but that's for security reasons, not due to overcrowding. Other than that, we got 4 open positions left. We should be full staff in the next month or 2 in the jail, so that'll be a good thing. It'll be the first time in my career. And other than that, you know, trying to keep the place warm with this brutal cold and these winds, but no pipes are frozen, so life's good.
What's the capacity right now?
185 is our max capacity. We are right now at 155.
Sorry, Jonathan, could you repeat Hal's answer? I heard the question, but not the response.
155 is the count currently.
And,
Capacity is 185.
all right, and women, are they being outboarded?
No, just 2 for security purposes.
Oh, okay, thanks.
Well, 185 is the max. About 85% we're farming out.
Sure said that.
80-85%, we gotta start farming.
So it doesn't mean we got that many positions open, we can't get up to 185, we never do with classification. The other thing, we'll be starting an academy in March. We're doing background for the road patrol. Hopefully, we'll have 4 applicants for that we'll be able to send. And we're getting a date on that shortly, when that academy would be starting. And hopefully, we'll be able to put 4 people on that.
Questions for Michael? We go back up to the resolutions. We got a quorum now. There's only one to execute a reciprocity agreement for the electrical licensing.
Move it.
Moved by Kathy, seconded by Ellen. Any questions? All in favor?
I just want to say that this is a discussion that we've been having with the Electrical Licensing Board for 3 years. So I'm very glad that it's actually passing now. I encourage it, that we pass it.
All in favor? Any opposed?
What was it?
What was it? Thank you. Government Center Access, did you get your group together?
Oh, sorry, can I go ahead? I don't mean to interrupt you, Jonathan.
Go ahead.
Okay. before we, actually, it was a bit premature that we put it on the agenda for February. I apologize for that. We did have a meeting. It was Sheriff Schiff and Sergeant Paul Tovic, Dick, and who was the other person in the meeting, Josh?
Josh and
Ed McAndrew.
Hal Smith.
Ed McAndrew.
And Hal, and Ed, yeah. So, what's good about the meeting, from their meeting, that the reports from 2008 and the one that took place last year, but it was actually Sheriff Schiff's station that we
You're breaking
various
up.
measures that we talk about as a package. Can you hear me?
We can now.
Yeah, you're cutting in and out a little bit, so.
Okay. All right. So I'm basically asking to wait until next month so we can bring the whole package of proposals together at one time rather than piecemeal.
Okay, so Annie will put it on the agenda for next
I'll
month.
tell Michelle, yeah.
And Jonathan, I just have, under new business, I just have 3 very brief points that I'd like to bring up with regards to the NISAC resolutions for public safety.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so the first one is a resolution calling for the state to direct much-needed state funding to probation and alternatives to incarceration in New York State. And we have a short window between now and April when the state budget is, voted on to be able to ask for the restoration of alternatives to incarceration. And Jeff's not there, but we all know how important the Alternatives to Incarceration program is to Sullivan County. So we have to kind of mobilize a mini lobbying effort, I would say, with all the legislators in Sullivan County and to contact our representatives at the state level, which is Aileen Gunther and Senator Bonasek, and whether we do it through letters or whether we do it through departments or phone calls or actually going up to Albany and visiting them. I think this is something that I really feel very, very strongly about, given what we've been through with probation for the last 2 years. The second resolution is calling on Governor Cuomo and the state legislature to plan for next generation NG 911 in New York State. NG is the next generation where had there been text messaging to 911 during Columbine, all the kids who were trying to text 911 would have gotten their messages heard. And an example of where NextGen did work is in Boston, where there were photos of the people from the Boston Marathon that were texted to the 911 center. One thing that has changed in the 3 years that I've been a legislator, that every time we put this resolution together, this time during the public safety meeting at NISAC, someone brought in an FCC email from the Federal Communications Commission in Washington saying that all the 911 surcharge fees that have been used on the phone, if there's a state that is not putting that money toward 911 upgrades and is just dumping it into the general fund, they're going to be looking into this. And Alex, can you just say a few words to the other legislators about what you told me about this, please?
I think we're making, the New York State's been making some strides. I think we collect, the last number I saw was about 190 million in surcharge statewide. And, for years, the state would give 10 million back to the counties. That number's gone up to about 75 million now. So I think we're making yards. We haven't made a touchdown yet. But, it's improving. But to Cora's point, the FCC looking into it, or I've heard them kind of making some threats of sanctions against states that they're not going to funnel grant money to the states that are using the surcharge money. So there's some movement in Washington anyway to kind of mandate the state to divert the full 190 million back to the counties for 911 purposes, which would be a huge benefit to us.
Did you wanted to add to that about what happens in the state of Delaware?
Yeah, state of Delaware, all the 911 surcharge money goes to 911.
All of it.
All of it, because 911 in the state of Delaware is a state function.
That's right.
So there's no money that goes, in New York State, a lot of this money goes to the state police, because years ago, they were receiving calls in counties that had no 911 centers, so they had 911 phones, and they would take the call, so that was the justification. But I don't believe there's any counties now that state police answer a 911 line. Every county, and some counties have joined together, answer 911 calls. But that money's still going into the state police communication, so that's where there's issues. So.
And then the third, thanks Dick, the third resolution that came up at NISAC is a resolution requiring updated driver's license photos over a reasonable period of time. And at first I was thinking, oh, do I really want my photo to look the way I look now? But the reason that they want this kind of thing is regarding identity theft, because as people change their looks and as people over time, their signatures also change, they want this as a measure. And I think in government services, it could probably come up through the county clerk's department. But like I said before, these three resolutions do have a ticking clock on them because of the April finalized date for the budget. So we'll be working really hard to get these lobbying efforts done. So in next month's public safety, we'll have more concrete measures of what either we are going to do or we can do between now and April. If anybody has any other suggestions, they can, we're over time now, right, Jonathan?
Yeah, we're pretty close. We're good. Don't do that, Gene.
I didn't.
Okay.
Everybody was thinking it though.
Public comment? Ken?
Yes, it's very important that our firemen we know that they're healthy. The biggest thing we're gonna have to do on this on the state level is maybe exempt fire companies from the 2% cap that they try to live under, because this is costly. Costs $2,000, $2,500 to suit them up to comply with OSHA. And the summertime is the worst time to be wearing those outfits when you're out there in 100-degree temperature and fighting a fire. So it's important that we keep that in mind. Broadband, if nobody's been aware, yesterday the FCC made a major recommendation to make broadband be treated as a regular utility, so that there'll be more competition and there'll be less chance of it being regulated as far as speed, and that should be kept aware of, as well as our towers and so forth. Maybe that may change how we look at things also. I hope we have GPS coordinates in our 911 system, that people who use a cell phone will know where they are. Glycine envelopes to me is a unintended consequences of the stamp collecting industry, because that's where they all started out from, and maybe that's how we could regulate how many are on the street and make them try to use something more expensive, like plastic bags. As far as the cost of getting into oxycodone or these end of life situations in cancer patients, the country has to have a real serious discussion about the right to die, legislation or the opportunity, because some people are kept alive way beyond where they should be for other reasons than really what they would really like. And we can put stuff in place where people can choose it's time to say goodbye and do it on their terms and make it legal. It would help that cost or that expense, and really it's really hard on those who are around them to watch somebody go through that. We've all probably experienced it. I don't know if anybody's aware of it in this room. It was on the news last night. There's a term called swatting. It's a term where people are calling 911 through a cell phone, going through a sanitizing number that you can't trace it, and they're calling in 911 situations that are bogus, and they're sending out SWAT teams to respond to this, and knocking in people's doors, and it all started out with video games, and they're trying to do things one to another. So hopefully it doesn't come here, but I think we should be aware of it. And as far as an oxycodone story, I'll tell you a little one of my own when I have my hip done. I don't like meds. I would take one before I went to physical therapy, and that was it. When I got home, I wouldn't take them. But I found out taking half of one at night made me go to sleep well. It made the night go all the way through, and then one day I said, I gotta stop this, and I did. And it's surprising, it was almost a week to finally get away from that edge that you would have. So yes, this is very addictive, and doctors have to be much more aware of it, and not the easy cure. And I think some of pain control is psychological. Some people can withstand pain more than others. Sometimes you give them a pill and tell them it'll work, even though it's sugar. So, you know, there's a lot into pain control that makes that is a lot of nuances to it. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Motion to adjourn?
So moved, Kathy.
Ellen?
What were we doing with that discussion next month?
Thanks, John.